there were hungry crowds at noon and downright boisterous ones at happy hour, when draws were $1 and the jukebox never cooled off. Rumor had it that rooms had been rented recently at the Flamingo Motel out back, but the molting neon sign still read V Can Y, and Ruby B was too diplomatic to confirm anything. This isn't to say that 3/4 of the buildings weren't boarded up or that the merchants were getting rich, but it was a pleasant change after a cold, hard winter that dragged on until cabin fever was epidemic, if not worthy of investigation by the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta. They'd have a tough time finding us in the backwoods of the Ozark Mountains. Maggody's all of a mile long, with a single traffic light and a singular lack of charm. Tourists might gape at the odd shape of the Voice of the Almighty Lord Assembly Hall, the charred timbers of the bank branch, the occasional drunk sprawled in the mud outside the pool hall, the blinding pinkness of the bar and grill, and ultimately the skeletal remains of Pirtle's Esso station. But that's about it until the Missouri line. Unless they're enamored of cows, scrub pines, and litter, of course. There's an abundance of all three. Estelle tucked an errant wisp of bright red hair back into her beehive, took a delicate sip of sherry, and turned the page. "Listen to this, Ruby B. Down in Louisiana, the police chased a 1990 Grand Am until it smacked into a tree. It turned out there was 20 buck-naked Pentecostals inside it. None of them hurt on account of being jammed in thicker than fleas on a wisp. They said their clothes were possessed by the devil." Ruby B snorted. "Sounds like something Brother Verber might find of interest. He's all the time worried that folks are getting naked without his knowing, or without his being there to sputter about eternal damnation and Satan's handiwork." "He ain't said much about that since he and Mrs. Jim Bob were caught up on Cotter's Ridge, dressed in lacy lingerie." She turned another page. "Did you know that a family in France has been living in a hollow log since the end of World War II? They have it fixed up real nice, although they sometimes have a problem with termites." I finished my beer. "I guess I'll go patrol for Bigfoot, ladies. He was last seen at the Pot of Gold, knocking on Eula Lemoy's trailer door." "She probably invited him in," Ruby B said as she took my glass and swished it in the sink. "If you're in the mood to patrol, you oughter look for a black limousine that was all over town this morning. It was longer than 2 regular cars, and the windows were so dark nobody could see who was driving it. Dahlia said it went real slow by her house twice, and Joyce Lambertino said it was up their way. Slinky Buchanan said he saw it going across the low-water bridge, but of course he claims he sits with his grandmother in the front pew every Sunday, and she's been dead for 19 years. Still, I can't imagine why this limousine would be creeping around town." "I'll bet that's how Bigfoot came to Maggody," I said as I headed for the relative sanity of the street. He's starred in enough movies to be able to afford a limo. "It went by my house, too," Estelle said, although dismissively. "Here's where a man took his wife camping in Canada, and she exploded from spontaneous combustion right there in the tent. There's an actual artist's depiction." "Let me see," said someone's mother. I walked to the PD, which consists of a brick building with 2 rooms, 1 desk, 3 chairs, one of them the repository for junk mail, yellow and white gingham curtains, and a telephone attached to an answering machine. The red light wasn't blinking, but it rarely did. I picked up my radar gun and went back outside to run a speed trap by the school zone. With any luck at all, I could bust Bigfoot, sell my story to the Probe, and make enough money to escape a humdrum existence in a ho-hum town where nothing much ever happens. "Did you see that limousine this morning?" Mrs. Jim Bob asked Brother Verber. They were standing outside the Voice of the Almighty Lord Assembly Hall, enjoying the sunshine and pondering what to do about the threatened rift in the missionary society. Out of deference to the weather, she wore a pale blue linen suit and was holding her white gloves in one hand. As always, her face was devoid of the devil's paint, and her underwear was starched. Her lips were pinched, but that was on account of Elsie McMay's mulishness rather than her own mood, which was more mellow.